The soft sand greeted my toes as I stepped foot in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It was about 4 in the afternoon, and there was quite a crowd there. Children were running around and playing, while the parents were indulged in lively conversations with their friends and relatives. The beach was always packed with visitors, especially during that time of year, which was mid September. As a child, my parents used to take my younger sister, Laurel, and I there every Saturday of the second week of every month, and I loved the beach as much as I love my home. The sound of the waves and the cool sea breeze with just a hint of seawater in the air always give a sense of comfort to the child I was 11 years ago. Now, I absolutely dreaded the thought of returning here. The sound of Sister Rebecca's voice calling the children together by the small beach shack brought me out of my thoughts as they began racing towards us with amazement plastered on their faces. That was their first time visiting the beach, and the orphanage had been planning to organize this trip for months. I had become a volunteer at Hope House Orphanage about 5 months ago, along with my friend Daniel, after we graduated high school, while waiting for our applications for UCLA to be approved. The orphanage isn't the happiest place on earth, and surely it isn't Disneyland. Most of the children there have lived wretched lives without a proper childhood or parents. The orphanage tries their best to provide them with enough books, toys, and other forms of entertainment, although they are facing financial problems.
Jen, I would like you to stay at the shack where the children are playing, and if any of them hurt themselves, you have to treat their wound. Can you do that? Sister Rebecca asked as she handed me the first aid kit she kept in her car. I simply nodded my head while reaching my hand out to receive it. Children, today is your chance to enjoy yourself with the sun still out and don't wander off too far. Our volunteers will be supervising all of you, and if anyone has hurt themselves, you can come to Jen and she'll help with your injuries. Sister Rebecca announced to the 10 children we brought to the beach. Soon after, they went off to play by the shore as the other volunteers followed behind. Will you be alright on your own, or should I stay with you? Daniel questioned as he stood behind me, blocking my view of the sea. I'll be fine. Besides, it's best that you stay with the children. You can be their playmate for the day, I replied to my best friend of 5 years. Daniel gave me a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes as he stalked off toward the shore. I continued to watch the children as they built sandcastles and play with each other by the sea with great happiness and vigor. As I turned my head to the left, I saw a boy with clear amber eyes and chestnut brown hair standing by the pillar of shack. Almost immediately, I recognized him as Caleb, a student in my social studies class during my sophomore year in high school. He didn't change that much in 2 years as he still looked the same, only just a couple of inches taller. Caleb was a quiet person back in school and spent most of his time with his own circle of friends in class. You are Jennifer Miller, right? I'm Caleb Matthews. I don't think you remember me though. The last we spoke was about 3 years ago, he said as he sat down. Most people call me Jen now, and yes, I do remember you. I respond as Caleb turned to face me. I could hear the squeal of children as they chased each other around the beach as people start leaving. What bring you to Myrtle Beach today? I was just leaving a reunion picnic with my family before I saw you here. he said to fill the silence. So I began telling him about how I volunteer at the orphanage and the trip that Sister Rebecca has planned. I think this trip is good for the children. They spend their whole life in the orphanage with no experience in the outside world. Although I do wish that could have chosen a better place instead of the beach to visit. This is in I cut myself off as I recollect my past. The greatest place for them to visit, I said to finish my sentence. Caleb gave me concerned look as I stared at my feet. In hindsight, I thought coming back there was not my best choice. What made you say that, Jen? Caleb asked me in a soft voice. He could see how much I affected by my own word about this place that has given some of the worst nightmares I've dreamed of. I just don't like this place as much as I used to. Maybe to some people here seem like a heaven to them, but to me it's the complete opposite. I answered quietly because I knew I've said too much. Caleb knew that there was something wrong and he was curious. With just a hint concern I could tell. I know that you are not telling me something and it's okay if you don't want to, but if you need to talk to someone, I'm always ready to listen. He said to me before he stood up and left. For years, I've been guilty ridden because of the tragedy that happened when I was younger. I was so overwhelmed by my feeling and before I could process my thought, I called out to Caleb within a split second. Wait, I called as he turned to face me. The sun rays brought out golden speck in his eyes as he began to walk toward me. You're right, I wasn't tell you something, but I'm ready to tell you now, I said as he sat down beside me. I can't keep hiding the truth that has been haunting me throughout my childhood. Caleb stared at me as he prepared himself for what he was about to hear.
The reason I've dreaded coming to the beach is because I watched my younger sister drown to death 11 years ago here. I finally say as his eyes widen before I continue my story with the truth I've never revealed to anyone else before. My sister, Laurel, and I were just playing by the shore while our parents were buying ice cream for us. I was only 7 years old and Laurel was 5. We knew that we shouldn't go too far out to sea, but Laurel was stubborn and she demanded to go further out. I didn't want to accept her, so I thought that it would be okay if she did, but it wasn't. I stopped for a few moments to remember the situation clearly during the tragic incident. That was when everything went wrong. I couldn't swim, and Laurel couldn't either. When she was already far out, I yelled for her to come back, but she didn't, and then I heard her screaming for help. Once my parents returned, my dad went to rescue Laurel, but he never found her body. She never had a proper burial, and it was as if the sea was her grave. I explained in a choked voice.
After Laurel's death, my family was never the same again, and I knew that it was my fault. Sometimes I could hear my mom crying over the loss of her youngest child before she slept while my dad comforted her. For months, I would dream of Laurel, but I watched her die over and over again, and nightmares seemed everlasting. I never saw Laurel's face when she died, but I could really already imagine how she would have looked like. In my mind, her face had a bluish pale hue, as her damp sandy blonde hair framed her face while her ice cold body showed no sign of life. The memory of her ear-splitting screams never left my mind. It served as a reminder that I was the reason my family was never whole again. I explained as tears were already streaming down my cheeks as my voice became croaky. I remember that I used to spend hours locked up in my bedroom while crying and begging Laurel to come back. That went on for months until my parents brought me to a therapist, Dr. Kane, who tried to convince me that Laurel's death was simply a challenge that my family would have to overcome sooner or later. He didn't understand the true pain of losing Laurel because it wasn't his loss. It was my family's loss. My parents lost their daughter who used to sketch portraits that were mostly just scribbles in colored crayons, but they appreciated every single one of her artworks. I lost a sister who used to spend every afternoon playing pirate figurines with me. The story of the game was the endless adventures of Captain John and Lady Nerissa. The title doesn't really suit anymore because after Laurel died, the adventures came to an end. I said with a slight chuckle while wiping my cheeks. I'm sorry about Laura's death. I knew that you had lost your sister, but I didn't expect it to happen so tragically, Caleb said sadly after I finished my story. He looks at me with sympathetic eyes as he sees the pain in my own. Believe me, I never anticipated it to happen that way either, I replied with a tinge of grief.
Amid the nostalgia I was feeling, I almost forgot about the children playing by the shore until one of the girls, Sarah, sauntered towards me as I noticed her scrapney. She explained that she fell down while playing with the other kids, so I cleaned and treated the wounds while Caleb introduced himself to her. After I was done, Sarah left to play beach ball with the rest of the group. She seemed very close to you, don't you think? I can tell by the way she talks to Eugene, Caleb mentioned while he watched the children play with the volunteer and sister Rebecca. I know Sarah's a special girl and she has been taught a lot after her parents left her at the orphanage when she was only 2 years old. She is quite shy when it comes to meeting new people, but she is close to me in the orphanage. I respond as I thought of the time I've spent with Sarah. But when I think of it, I stop in the middle of my sentence as Caleb looked toward me. In many ways, she reminds me a lot of Laurel. I finally say,